All right, guys, so conservatives are still desperately trying to find their footing when it comes to attacking Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Now, I've covered so many different iterations of this struggle for them. They've called Tim Walz Tampon Tim and alleged that he put tampons in the boys' bathrooms, which just straight up was not even true. They attacked him for changing the Minnesota flag to look like the Somalian flag because it's some sort of a deep state conspiracy or something like that. We've seen them attack Kamala Harris, saying that she is sort of a racial shapeshifter, and one day she's black and one day she's Indian. It's gotten pretty pathetic, but this latest iteration, I think, is probably the most pathetic that I've seen so far. So here we have Kamala and Tim Walz, who dropped this video. The whole thing is about like 10 minutes long. It's the most benign shit ever. It's basically just them trying to make themselves seem as though, look, we're normal people having a regular conversation. And part of the conversation was, let's talk about our food interests and whatever else. And so Tim Walz makes a self-deprecating joke about him not liking spicy foods. Let's go ahead and watch this, and then we'll see how conservatives have handled this. Spoiler alert, not too well.
Like I have white guy tacos and
what is
like
that?
black,
Like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's
and
okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said to be careful and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota, you know.
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
I'm trying to expand
We'll
my
figure that-
my food knowledge.
You know what? We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. That's literally it, right? He doesn't like spicy foods. He likes to have sort of plain tacos with just ground beef and cheese and whatever else. That's basically the entire segment. So a normal person, I think, right, if you're in favor of Kamala Harris, you would look at this and say, oh, that's kind of relatable, right? If you don't like Kamala Harris, maybe you'd say like, okay, well, that was kind of stupid, maybe a little bit fake and phony, but like, whatever, I'll move on with my day. But if you're one of these other top conservative pundits, this may be your reaction. Here we have Ben Shapiro. And his response to this was this. See, folks, it's funny that white people hate spices. Not racist at all. Not racist at all. Just funny. And he says, fact check, almost as if he's doing like a parody of himself. He says, fact check, Europeans liked spices so much that they literally got involved in several hundred years of war in order to determine control of the spice trade. Huh. Okay, so the same guys, like Ben Shapiro and like Matt Walsh, who we're going to get to here in a second, the same people who don't believe that systemic racism is something that exists in this country, those same people are now saying that it's racist for a white guy, Tim Walz, to make a self-deprecating joke about how he doesn't really like spicy foods. I mean, this is what he tweeted. He said, listen, I'm just not much of a spice guy. And Kamala got in on the joke, and she sort of said, like, oh, what's a white guy taco? Oh, is that like mayonnaise and tuna, right? Because white people like mayonnaise, right? It's just a stupid surface-level white stereotype, basically, is the joke there. And he's saying this is racist. And not only that, but his fact check here, he's kind of admitting that, like, Europeans engaged in hundreds of years of imperial conquest to dominate the global spice trade. But the best part about this is that his analysis of that seems to indicate that he believes that the reason that Europe wanted to dominate the spice trade is not for any sort of like financial or political or power benefit, but it was actually just because they really liked spices. Is that what Ben is? I mean, let's read. Europeans liked spices so much that they literally got involved in several hundred years of war in order to determine control of the spice trade. So he's literally saying the reason that they wanted dominant control over the spice trade was because they really liked putting spices on their foods. What? This is like saying, you know, going back a couple hundred years in the United States, this is like looking at the destructive and exploitative and morally abhorrent slavery here in the United States in the South and saying, well, the reason that we had cotton plantations wasn't for power, it wasn't for economic benefit, it was just because Americans really liked the soft feel of cotton. That's what this is the equivalent of saying. What are we doing here, guys? That was just Ben Shapiro. We also had guys like Cernovich, who says this, Jesus, on a hunch, I thought, I wonder if Tim Walz is lying about how people in Minnesota don't season their food. Turns out he won a recipe contest in 2016. Guys, they're doing like background oppo research on Tim Walz cooking in some sort of a competition where he included spices in a recipe. This is the pathetic nature of where we have gotten in American politics. That like they're not attacking them on any of the policies that Mike Waltz or that Tim Walz actually passed inside of Minnesota. They're not attacking the legacy of Kamala Harris as an AG or a district attorney or as a senator or as a VP. They're talking about spices. They're spending their time doing background research onto Tim Walz and whether or not he has ever put spices into his food. Okay. Now we also have here the best part. Matt Walsh. He says this. Crazy that a presidential candidate can just casually let out some blatant anti-white racism and nobody cares. Imagine if Donald Trump said that a black guy taco was made of fried chicken and watermelon, nuclear meltdown. Okay, so first off, to address Donald Trump a little bit here, are we talking about the same Donald Trump who said that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation? That Donald Trump? The same Donald Trump when talking about immigrants who said they're sending rapists and criminals, and some of them may be good people. That same Donald Trump? The same Donald Trump that wanted to do a full-blown Muslim ban of Muslims entering into the United States? That same Donald Trump? Yeah, imagine if he had ever said or done anything racist. Can you just imagine if he had said something like that? Also, by the way, this is not even an accurate analogy that's being made here because Tim Walz is white and he's making a joke about white people, right? Now, I guess you could say Kamala sort of got in on the joke, but Tim Walz is the one who's making the joke about white people, right? So if Donald Trump came out and said that black guy tacos were made of fried chicken and watermelon, then yeah, that would be racist because Trump is not black. Trump is white. He would be making a joke about black people. Now, would everybody have their hair on fire and freak the fuck out? Probably not. Because if Trump said that a black guy taco was made of fried chicken and watermelon, that wouldn't even be on like the list of the top 20 most racist things that Trump has said or done throughout the last number of years. So it probably wouldn't even be considered that much. That would just be like an average thing that Trump says on any given day. Now, he also went on to do an entire fucking monologue about this, guys. He covered this on his show. He did a whole freak out about this. Let's listen to it real quick.
Speaking of anti-white bigots, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz put out a very weird video yesterday. They sat down and I guess pretended to have dinner together or something. And I don't know what the point of the video was, but I guess the point was to show us that, oh, they're real people, just like you and me. Oh, look, they're eating a meal. I eat meals. They're just like me. I should vote for them. This is the quality I'm looking for in a leader. I want to know that this is someone who eats food.
Yeah, I mean, that basically was the point of the thing. It was just to do like a goofy, relatable thing. That was the whole point. Yeah, there's nothing deeper about it. This wasn't like a policy discussion that they were having. It was just a stupid thing. Like, yeah, sure, that's exactly what it was for. Now, on the other hand, I would love to see Donald Trump and JD Vance sit down and have the same kind of a, natural conversation. And let's see how well that goes and see if it doesn't just fall off a cliff immediately.
But so maybe that was the point. I don't know. But here's the video that Tim Walz posted to his social media account.
We'll skip ahead of you.
Yeah. Just on the fact that this is so awkward and fake and lame. But everyone's skipping over the more important point, which is that a presidential candidate just casually dropped anti-white racism in the middle of what was supposed to be a lighthearted video. Tim Walz says that he makes white guy tacos. And Kamala says, what is that, mayonnaise and tuna? Like, that is anti-white racism. That's what that is. And if you don't believe that, right, if you think that I'm overstating the case, all right, well, just imagine it the other way. Imagine a black guy says to Donald Trump, I make black guy tacos. And Donald Trump says, oh, what is that, like fried chicken and watermelon? Maybe sprinkle some Kool-Aid powder over top? Am I right? How do you think everybody would react to that? What do you think the reaction would be? Nuclear meltdown, literally. I mean, they would probably shoot a nuclear missile at Donald Trump for that. They would execute him via nuclear attack if he were to say something like that. I mean, the outrage would be so immense, we would never hear the end of it. The date of this black guy taco comment would be remembered by the media forever and memorialized. Like, for years after, they would solemnly refer to 8/16, right? We'd have January 6th. Do you remember 8/16? I remember where I was on 8/16. The day of the fried chicken and watermelon taco joke. They would be weeping in the street. They would build statues and memorials to the lives lost because of the taco joke. KFC and Kool-Aid companies would come out and denounce Trump over this. So would every watermelon distributor in the country. And we all know that. This is another one of those things where, like, there are people that are going to clip this. They're going to take this clip of me saying that the comment from Kamala Harris was anti-white racism, and they're going to try to present it as though it's just, like, on its face absurd. And yet even
Because
they know that what I'm saying is 1,000% true, because you damn well know that that comment the other way, it wouldn't even be a discussion about whether it's racist. It would be considered the most racist thing a president has ever done, including the presidents who own slaves. And that's in spite of the fact that the watermelon fried chicken trope for black people is actually significantly less racist than what Kamala said. Because black people have a reputation for liking fried chicken and watermelon because that's something that actually does come out of black culture. Black comedians make jokes about that kind of stuff all the time. That sort of joke comes from a place of recognition and affection, really. Like, it's not offensive. There's nothing offensive with it. Fried chicken's great. Who doesn't like fried chicken? It's on the level of, like, making a joke about how Asian people are good at math. It's stereotypical. They're not all good at math, but it's not bad to be good at math. It does come from a place of, like, a lot of them are good at math. And that is also, that's the kind of thing you listen to an Asian comedian. They'll make those kinds of jokes. On the other hand, the mayonnaise thing for white people it's purely spiteful and hateful. There's not any kind of affection in it. There's not any kind of recognition.
Oh my God. Okay. So, in other words, when you make a stereotypical joke about black people or about Asian people, then that's perfectly fine and good, right? Because that's based in reality, according to Matt Walsh here. Now, by the way, if you want to know where the origins of the, like, black people like watermelon trope came from, go and look at the history of that. Right? I think you'll find that it actually does tie into the history of structural racism and oppression of black people in this country. I'm dead serious about that. Go and look up the history of that trope. We won't get into it now, but the core of what he's saying is that it's okay to make these kinds of racial stereotyped jokes about black people or Asian people, but not about white people. Suddenly, when it's about me, Matt Walsh, then it becomes incredibly offensive. Then I'm going to get triggered about it. I'm going to do an entire 7-minute segment on my show about it, and I'm going to try to explain to you guys how this is actually anti-white bigotry and racism of the highest form. And it's actually much worse than any of the racism that black people in this country have ever faced. That's what he's saying here. I mean, guys, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? Now, to some extent, it's almost uplifting that this is what they have. Like, you're actually going to try to launch with Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and Cernovich and a bunch of other conservatives online. Like, you guys think that this is a good attack? Okay, go for it. Go for it. You want to say that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are anti-white racists because he made a joke about white guy tacos and then she responded with another joke about mayonnaise? I mean, like, if that's the battle that you guys want to have, go for it. Go for it. Good luck with that, right? I think that the Kamala campaign maybe would be better served talking about actual issues, right? Now, she did come out with a slate of her initial policy agenda. It's not great, right? It tackles some of the main issues that they tackle, I think, are leaning in the right direction. Like, they're going after, housing costs and childcare and corporate price gouging and things. The specific ways that they've outlined how they're going to go about doing that, I'm not in love with. I don't think that it's nearly as good as it possibly could be. You've also had Kamala backing off of other progressive policies like Medicare for All and the Green New Deal and things like that. But overall, when you go and you look at, and I've watched tons of their speeches so far, when you go and you look at Tim Walz or Kamala Harris on the campaign trail, what are they talking about? They're just talking about, like, pro-union messaging, pro-abortion messaging, Trump is a criminal, let's address childcare, let's address housing costs, let's address corporate price gouging. Like, for the most part, they're just talking about normal shit, right? Kitchen table issues, if you will. Meanwhile, we have conservatives, whether it's J.D. Vance or Trump or Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro, who are focusing on the most asinine bullshit that you've ever heard, leaning into stupid culture war battles and reverse racism, bigotry, and whatever the fuck else, and alleging that Kamala Harris isn't actually black and she's a racial shapeshifter and whatever else. Tampon Tim, all of this other bullshit. It's like, number one, it's lazy. Number two, it's probably not going to be politically effective, and it actually may cost you guys for the 2024 election. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the Kamala campaign, but compared to the Trump campaign right now, you guys are digging yourselves a massive hole. You're digging yourselves a massive hole. So I guess keep it up, keep doing what you're doing, and good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying